Last class we were discussing about a very important term called Fisher-Kilani's chain lengthening process. Basically, if you have a family of a particular aldehyde like glyceraldehyde, which is the most basic polyhydroxyaldehyde, that aldehyde, when we treat with HCN in the presence of casein, we know cyanohydrin will be formed, right? A cyanohydrin formation is observed. And this cyanohydrin which has been formed could have two enantiomeric forms here. Correct. Now that when you treat with H2 palladium barium sulfate and hydrolysis, we will get this CHCN to become CHO, which is the aldehyde form, right? So basically one carbon with HOH has increased from D-glyceraldehyde, and the so formed new carbohydrates are called D-erythrose and D-threose. The D comes from the convention that this OH in the last chiral carbon must be on the right hand side. That is a convention. So that D sugar. In fact, the why we are studying so much about D sugars is all the naturally occurring carbohydrates, right from glucose, sucrose, everything is D. You see that glucon D, right? Okay, so that D represents, this capital D represents that natural form of glucose. Okay, so we will get D-erythrose and D-threose, and if we keep on increasing that process further, we can get up to glucose. So you can see that D-glyceraldehyde first giving D-erythrose and D-threose, and from D-erythrose again if you do Fisher-Kilani, we will get D-ribose and D-arabinose. Okay. And from threose if we check out, we will get xylose and lixose. Okay, and ribose will give us allose and altrose. So every particular family member will give you two new uh, step up aldehydes. So here if we check out arabinose with Fisher-Kilani would give us D-glucose and D-mannose. Okay. While lixose will give us galactose and talose, xylose will give us glucose and idose. So on total, if you check it out, total we are getting 16 different isomers with respect to these four chiral centers. Correct? So I hope you guys understood that. Out of which 8 are the ones which are D family, which we'll be studying. So the way to remember is, before glucose, what is the family which it has? It has been derived from arabinose. So this is R axle, and this side AGGG, and this side it is AMIT or amit. This is the way to remember. From glyceraldehyde we get D-threose and erythrose. From this we get these 4. From these 4 we'll get these 8. Okay. So this is the most important one for us. In our syllabus we have only this one, which is glucose and mannose. Okay. Now we already saw some reactions of glucose. Let us continue with more reactions which are not the detecting reactions, like it is not like some detection reactions. Check out, in case of NaBH4, you know that aldehydes will be reduced by NaBH4 to alcohols. So I would get this as, change the color here, yeah, I'll get this as CH2OH. Rest all the structure is same, right? Now can you see that this is hydroxyl group on every carbon now, right? So this kind of a hydroxy group is called as glucitol. Glucitol. So glue is used because it is derived from glucose. Understood? Okay. Suppose if it is coming from mannose, then what would it be? Mannitol. If it is coming from galactose, galactol. Okay. If it is coming from any other forms, you know what to use. So this would be glucitol. Okay. Right. And the family, because it is derived from aldehydes, we can call it as family as alditol. So these are all the family of alditols. Okay. Right. All of these glucitols are in the, if you just go to any medical shop and you would ask for glucitol, glucitol may not be known word. The common industry would use this sorbitol. So sorbitol as in all hydroxy groups on all the 6 carbons here. Got it? Next reaction, if you check out aldehydes with dilute HNO3. With dilute HNO3, primary alcohols and aldehydes both will get oxidized. So we will get this as COOH and COOH here. Got it? When both COOH are there at these two terminals, which is dioic acids, these are called glucaric acid. Glucaric acid. Okay. And because it is derived from aldehydes, we can call this as family of aldaric acids. These are from aldaric acids. Suppose if it was from mannose, the name would be mannaric acid, that's all. So I hope you got an idea. So with dilute HNO3, we will get glucaric acids, just remember that. And if you treat with HiO4, HiO4 is a source where it will break the carbon-carbon bond when you have vicinal diol. So you can see this is a vicinal diol. With respect to this is vicinal, this is vicinal, and this is vicinal. And aldehydes can also be represented as vicinal forms of two diols. So which means all these bonds will be broken, and how many molecules we will have? We will have 5 moles of HCOOH, which includes this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All these 5 will become acid. The last carbon which is present, that will exist only in the aldehyde form, HCHO. Okay. Now this does not have to worry about the configuration, because even if the OH is on this side, this OH is on this side, still you will get the same product, correct? So all the family of glucose, that includes mannitol, galactose, mannose, galactose, all thallose, all of them will give the same kind of a product, 5 moles of HCOH and 1 mole of HCHO. Okay guys. Now, if you just check out how glucose and mannose, how they are different with each other, only thing you will find out is glucose and mannose, both of them are epimers of each other. So let me just define what is this epimers. Epimers are nothing but diastereomers which have change in configuration, change in absolute configuration at only one carbon center, one chiral center, one chiral center. Then we call them as epimers. For example, let me show you. If you see in glucose, and I keep numbering them, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Check on the second carbon, we have OH on the right hand side. Third carbon, we have OH on the left hand side. Rest all, it is on the right hand side. Just imagine that. Now, if you just go to the mannose form, mannose has rest all things same. Third carbon, fourth carbon, fifth carbon, sixth carbon. This entire structure is same. The only change is on the second carbon. If OH was on the right hand side, that would have been glucose. If OH is on the left hand side, it is mannose, which means with respect to only this chiral center, the configuration has changed. But otherwise, all other configurations are same. When you have multiple chiral centers, right, then only at one chiral center, if you are changing the configuration, then those two compounds are called, those two diastereomers are called epimers. Okay. So I can say that glucose as well as mannose, both will be epimers of each other. Okay. Right. And one more reaction I forgot, right? Let me finish that. Glucose, if you react with concentrated H2SO4, not just glucose, if you take fructose, sucrose, any form of carbohydrates, when you react with concentrated H2SO4, it will convert into carbon, correct, and release out H2O, correct. So basically what is happening here is that H2SO4 is completely dehydrating that, and eventually everything remains as a carbon, and this is like a charcoal form. Charcoal form. You may have learned in group 16 sharing of glucose or carbohydrates. Okay. Now, coming to the same reactions what we have learned earlier for glucose, we will do the same reactions for mannose now. Suppose if I take D family mannose, you can see that only the change is at this carbon position. Rest all it is actually glucose structure only. If you react that with anhydride, we know that wherever there is OH, it will convert into an ester form. So you can see it will become CHO, and here you will have OAC. Here we'll have OAC, and here we'll have OAC form. Here we have OAC, and here we'll have OAC. Right? So this is what it is forming with AC2O. Right? With red phosphorus and HI, we know that everything will get reduced and we will get N-hexane. That will be the product. Okay. Next, with dilute HNO3, we saw that aldehydes get affected and primary alcohols will get affected. So we will get this as COOH here and COOH here. Earlier we used to call it as glucaric acid. Now this would be called as D-manneric acid. Manneric acid. Okay. Yes, this is clear. Right. The common name, industrial name, is saccharic acid. Saccharic acid. Right. Next, with NaBH4, this CHO will get reduced. It will become CH2OH. Rest all will remain same. Everything will be OH only. So there we call it as glucitol. Here what do we call it? We call it as mannitol. It is mannitol. It is coming from mannose, so it is called mannitol. Okay. Next, with bromine, initially when there was glucose, if it was glucose, imagine if this was glucose, we had COOH here. We call it as gluconic acid. See, remember the difference, glucaric acid and gluconic acid. We used to call it as gluconic acid if you have COH here and CH2OH here. Here also, if this reaction is with mannose, this will become COOH. So only one COH is there, rest all are hydroxy groups, pentahydroxy hexanoic acid. So this commonly known as N-mannoic acid. So this is mannoic acid. Okay. Like I said, mannose is a C2 epimer of glucose. That means at carbon 2 position, its configuration is different than glucose. Rest all is the same. So I guess you got the reactions of mannose. Just check out once again. With anhydride, we will get ester form at all these 5 alcohol places. Red phosphorus HI will get N-hexane. With dilute HNO3, primary alcohols and aldehydes both will get oxidized. NaBH4 reduction will take place. Br2 in water, CHO will oxidize to COOH. Okay. Next, see the reactions of fructose. In case of fructose, correct, all the type of reactions are similar here also. That means if I take AC2O and pyridine, wherever there is alcohol, we will get this as OAC. Here we will get this as OAC. Here there was an alcohol, so that will become OAC here, OAC, OAC and OAC. If I react that with red phosphorus and HI, we will get N-hexane. Okay. If I react that with dilute HNO3, oxidation will take place, and we would get here this primary alcohol will become acid. This will also become acid. Okay. Next, with NaBH4, if you react, you would have rest everything common. Okay. Here it will become CH2OH, and NaBH4 will also reduce the keto part, right? So this will also become alcohol. So we'll get OH and H and OH, H, OH, H, OH, H and CH2OH, right? So this is the product which you will get. With bromine, right? So if you check out with bromine, in case of D-fructose, bromines does not interact with what do you say, keto forms, correct? So nothing will happen here. So whatever the form it has been there, it will be the same. So no change in here, correct? If you react that with HiO4, how many moles it will consume? You will have 5 moles of H, sorry, not 5 moles because it is a keto form. It will break here, you can see it will break here, it will break here, it will break here. Here also it will break, here also it will break, but this carbon will become carbon dioxide. Okay, so I guess you remember that. So we will have one carbon dioxide, we'll have 3 moles of HCOOH, and we'll have 1 mole of HCHO. Okay, so 1 HCHO, 3 moles of acid and 1 mole of carbon dioxide. This will be the products you will get from D-fructose. Okay, mannose I have not written, just check out. Mannose will be same as that of glucose. So 5HCOOH plus HCHO. So as much as syllabus is concerned, we have only glucose, but since mannose is exactly the same, all the reactions are exactly same, just the naming is different, you might be asked. Fructose, just in case I give you. Okay. Now check this. This is an important concept known as enediol rearrangement. Okay. This rearrangement name is very small. It's called Lobredet-Brand-Van Eckenstein rearrangement. Got it? So it's such a small name to be called as a rearrangement. Now, see, based on this, what exactly it tells us? If you take glucose, let me take in a pure form. Imagine I took pure form of glucose. If I keep that in alkaline medium, right, glucose can convert into fructose and it can convert into mannose. So you'll always see after certain time there won't be any pure glucose existing that will convert into fructose as well as mannose. Same way, if I take pure fructose and add some alkaline solution, which means aqueous NaOH for instance, then D-fructose will also change to glucose and it will change to mannose. The same logic applies for mannose also. So they are interconvertible to each other. Okay. Now, how exactly it is happening? Check it out. If you see in case of mannose here, mannose OH will be on the left hand side. I am only considering first 2 carbons, 1 and 2. Here also 1 and 2. Okay. Glucose, fructose also 1 and 2. Restol is a tail. Imagine restol, this part which I have written in the box, this box is a tail. So they have some tail because the change is happening only between 1 and 2. So mannose or glucose, both of them will convert into this ene and all. And this ene and all can become an aldehyde. It can become a ketone. If it becomes a ketone, it will become fructose. If it regains back to aldehyde, it can become again glucose or mannose. That is exactly what is being seen in basic medium. Okay. So in short, it is just a tautomerism step. Okay. Let me show you again. Suppose with mechanism, we'll start with glucose. Let's say I have OH here, H here, and this thing is completely a tail here, and we have C double bond O and H. When we take OH minus, when we take it in basic medium, OH minus will extract this proton, okay, and this bond will shift here, and this would go here. So what do we get? We will get this as O minus H with double bond OH, okay, write this as OH and tail following here. This is what is going to happen. Okay, so in hydrolysis we can say first an enol will form here because we may get this as OH, double bond C and O and H. Rest of all this is tail. So ene diol is forming. Can you see that this is an ene diol? So ene diol is forming. And since it is in the basics medium only, OH minus will bound to react with this proton and it will extract the proton from here. Well, it can extract the proton from here also, it doesn't matter. Okay, let's say it has extracted the proton from here. Then what can happen? As soon as it extracts the proton, we will have HCOH double bond CO minus and the tail here. So this will close as a double bond and this would move, which means if you have of course this is an aqueous solution, so this pi bond will take away the proton from here and we will get this as OH H, right, and with H here on this carbon it is taking away that double bond O form here, okay, and it is taking away that H and rest all is the tail. Correct. What is this? If this tail, if you observe in all of this, H, OH, H, 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 OH, 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 H, 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 OH, OH, which means the tail is exactly same in glucose, fructose and mannose. Since the tail is same, now this we started off with glucose and this structurally, if at all I write, it is actually CH2OH C double bond O with tail. What is this one? This is fructose. So I guess you can understand that it is changing to fructose. In the same mechanism, if the OH was attacking here, double bond could form here and this OH can come on the right hand side or on the left hand side because it is a double bond addition. That means it can go to mannose also, it can go to glucose also. So it's a very important thing to understand that in basic medium, right, basic medium, you will certainly see glucose, any pure form will convert into their respective uh, forms here, that is glucose changes to fructose, fructose to mannose and vice versa. Everybody understood that? Yeah. Okay, what happens in acidic medium? Acidic medium, the reaction will be pretty slow first of all, okay, because forming of enol and then extracting this proton, you can see that extracting this, even after formation of enol here, extracting this proton becomes very difficult in acidic medium. So this type of an interconversion or rearrangement is specifically observed best in basic medium as compared to acidic medium. Which means, suppose if I take 100% of fructose in acidic medium, I may see only hardly 1 or 0.1 percentage of glucose, I mean very less percentage of glucose. Majority of the percentage will still exist in fructose. But if at all I take it in basic medium, almost all of these three can exist at a very significant amount. Is this clear, everyone? I guess all of you understood that.
Sir, the double one O can
Tell
go
me,
further
beta.
down. The double
What,
one
beta?
O can go further down.
This one, here, down,
Yes,
right?
sir. It can go further. It can go
Right,
further down.
it can go
So
down also, okay, it can go down also. Now point is, here if it is changing, it might get multiple other products as well, correct? But when you see, if you start with glucose here, the high chances are that because CHO is here, right, CHO is forming here, there is high chance interconversion will happen here. That problem comes only with fructose, right, not with glucose and mannose, correct?
yes, sir. Yes.
Now, when it comes to fructose, when if you check out the reaction here, this double bond formation is happening more towards this CH2OH. Where is that? From here, let me start. Suppose on the fructose, if at all OH minus is attacking, okay. So from here, let us imagine CHOH, C double bond O, and this tail is present here, okay. And now how the reaction will take place? OH minus could have extracted proton from here, or in the tail if there is one more hydrogen here this way and OH. So OH minus can extract the proton from here as well. Got it? Now when it makes a double bond, correct? So if you check out, it can make a double bond here with CH. So could make this as a C double bond C with O minus and a tail. This is what it can make, and getting this as OH. Got it? There is one more hydrogen here. Hydrogen this way. Okay. And in case if you had another form here, we can get this as H OH and CH2 with CO minus, CO minus, and the other side we may have double bond with this and O and tail continuing here, OH and tail continuing here. These are the two forms which I can get in case of fructose. Got it? Now,
Yes.
right. So if you check out here with respect to this double bond, all of these groups which are there down here, correct? They are all withdrawing groups, and moreover, next time when the OH minus comes here and tries to extract the proton here, this would relatively be more crowding in this side as compared to that of this side. It is not that galactose and all are not forming. From fructose you can get galactose formation, talose formation also. But moreover, you will always see the glucose formation to be major, glucose and mannose to be major. And this has been experimentally observed that fructose main compound, main interconversion is always to glucose and mannose and less towards galactose, talose and the other forms. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
And within the glucose, now if you check it out, how we can prove that? We can prove that using Tollens test or Fehling's or Benedict's test. If I take this diol and react with any of this mannose, glucose and fructose, what I'll do, all of this, can you check out Tollens, Fehling's, Benedict, all of these are basic solutions. Basic solutions. So since it is a basic medium, they are bound to interconvert with each other, correct? So they will interconvert with each other. Therefore, in case of mannose, definitely Tollens is a positive test, Fehling's is a positive test, Benedict, and bromine is also a positive test. Bromine water, because bromine water will decolorize, oxidizing this aldehyde. Okay. Same way, glucose will also give positive test in all of this. Fructose also started giving positive test to Tollens, Fehling's and Benedict because it can interconvert towards glucose or mannose. But it was hardly giving reaction with bromine and H2. Why? Because this is more of an acidic medium, bromine water, correct? So we will have HOBr formation in it, and which is acidic medium. It does not allow too much of fructose to convert into glucose. So hardly you would see any color change appear. Got it? So these tests definitely prove us that majority of the content of fructose, right, will be interconverted to glucose and mannose when these solvents, when these reagents are added. I hope all of you understood that. So the concept is known as Lobrede-Brand Lobrede-Brand-Van Eckenstein's rearrangement. So all of this, if you check it out, Tollens, Fehling's and Benedict, which means if there is a keto form somewhere in between that can slowly crop up and come back to, suppose if this is how it is, ketone is somewhere in between also, here, like this. We have CH2, OH here, OH here, OH here, double bond O, OH, OH, right? Not necessarily second position, it may be on the third position. Let us assume it is on third. Slowly in basic media it will keep driving towards this and it can become again an aldehyde form here. Correct? That's why we can say that all monosaccharides are reducing sugars. I hope all of you understood that. So even if they are in a keto form, they will be interconverted to the aldehyde form and they will start giving positive tests for tolins, phalins and benedicts. Okay. And remember, all the sugars which are called reducing sugars will give positive test. They will give positive test with Tollens reagent, Fehling's reagent and Benedict's reagent. Okay. I hope all of you got that. Right. Now, going to the next concept of understanding glucose by structure. Okay. Mainly we have to understand glucose's structure, for which let us just confirm about its IUPAC. The other day when we learned, we saw that there are 4 chiral centers here. This is the uh, Fischer projection of glucose. If you check out on each and every carbon, suppose if I take this as the second carbon, right, we know that OH is on the right hand side, CHO up, H here and R here. Okay, so if I make the even number of changes, now I'll get 1, 2, 3, 4 here, right? I mean 1, 2, 3, 4 here. Hydrogen will come here now. So this 3 is here, 2 is here, 1 which was here, OH. Now if you see 1, 2, 3, it is moving clockwise. So which means it is R configured. So the C2 carbon of glucose is R configured. Similarly, if you check out C3, it is S configured, which confirms that 4 must be R, 5 must be R. So the IUPAC name for complete name of the sugar for glucose would be 2R, right? And in third position we have S, 4R and 5R. Got it? With 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pentahydroxy hexanal, right? So that is this D glucose, right? So this was asked in JE1, so please remember this how it is. Okay, so check out the exact name, IUPAC name for glucose. Got it? Next, if you see glucose, I told you that it can exist like an epimer with mannose, right? At C2. At C2, it will exist like a mannose. Same way at C2, galactose and thallose can also exist like a manomer. Please draw the structure of galactose once and check it out. Okay. Now, if you see glucose, right, and let me write the galactose part also so that you are familiar with that. See, this is glucose. This part is glucose. The galactose will only have change in this position, change or only at this position, this location. So on this location, if you have OH here and H here, this is galactose. Rest all is same. So can I say that with respect to C4 carbon, now if you check out with respect to this C4 carbon, this one, C4 carbon, you can see the configuration is different, rest all are same. Okay. So I can say glucose and galactose are C4 epimers. And similarly galactose and thallose are C2 epimers. Glucose and mannose are C2 epimers. So understand the terminology. When you are using the word epimers, it is changing its configuration only at one position. So glucose and mannose are diastereomers for sure because they are not mirror images. It is only changing position at one place, so it is called epimer. And if we check out D, this positive represents the observed rotation in the polarimeter. In polarimeter, when it comes to glucose, it is found to be positive, which means it is dextro rotation. This D is not to do with dextro rotation. This positive means dextro rotation. Okay. If this is dextro rotation, in fact, the rotation is around positive 12 degrees. Then its mirror image is called as L glucose, correct? And this L is because of this OH placed on the left hand side. Remember that it has nothing to do with observed specific rotation. Its specific rotation, if it is negative, right? So this means it is levo rotation. So here it will be minus 12 degrees. So this is a dextro rotatory and levo rotatory glucose, correct? So 2016 it was asked what is L sugar. So what is the structure of L sugar? You have to determine L sugar. So please understand that it is exact mirror image of D positive sugar, D positive glucose. Because all of you got these points now. Like I said, we have to spend more time on the structure of glucose here. See what has appeared when glucose was, if I take aqueous solution of glucose, because see glucose is actually a solid form, it exists in a crystalline form, okay. So to make a reaction with any reagent, first I will add some water, I'll make it aqueous solution. When I took aqueous solution of glucose and started checking out the reaction for 2,4-DNP, I hope all of you remember what is 2,4-DNP, Brady's reagent, right? 2,4 dinitro phenyl hydrazine. This is 2,4-DNP. What does 2,4-DNP do? 2,4-DNP confirms the presence of aldehyde or keto group. Well, glucose do have aldehyde group, but this test was hardly observed. Okay, I can say almost negative test. No shift test. Shift test was the observation for aldehydes. Remember, NHSO3. This is also for aldehydes and beta methoxy ketones. None of these tests were observed positive. That means there is no colorized solution or color crystals forming with this. There is no pink color turning with this. It should turn into rosy pink, right? That is not happening with this. There is no white precipitate forming with NHSO3, which means glucose must not be in the straight chain. It must exist in some kind of a cyclic form, okay. On top of that, if you check out pentaacetate form also, it was not showing pentaacetate of glucose, got it. And even if you take pentaacetate of glucose in a straight chain, suppose it is not reacting with NH2OH, which means again C double bond O group is being not formed. So both of these tests, right, are showing the case that CHO presence is not there in glucose. Now what happened in the glucose then? The minute I turned into an aqueous solution of glucose, something happened by which that CHO is lost. Let us see what might be happening. So glucose has turned into a cyclic structure, got it? And when you isolate that cyclic structure and again form it into crystals, we will get an alpha glucose and a beta glucose, correct? And if you check out how to get alpha glucose, if you take high concentration of glucose and heat around 30 degrees, slowly glucose will start crystallizing. But if you take concentrated solution of glucose, okay, aqueous glucose, and heat up to 98 degrees, then crystallization is seen, then we will have beta glucose formation. So we can make out that beta glucose will have high melting point as compared to that of alpha glucose, okay. Now, which tells us what is happening in aqueous solution. Let us try to understand that. In aqueous solution, I thought I have added glucose, right? This is how the glucose has been. Now what is the glucose looks like? It would have CHO here, okay. Please everyone focus here. Don't write anything right now. Just listen for some time. This is glucose, right? This is what we have learned so far as glucose. Now this glucose, what happened in aqueous solution, the minute it has become a solvent form, in the aqueous solution, now this CHO, which is an aldehyde, will start reacting with an alcohol form here, correct? So in aqueous solution, slowly, if you remember, if you have an aldehyde, okay, here, I have written that here, check out. If at all I have an aldehyde and I react with an alcohol, what do I get? I will get hemiacetal. Well, dry HCl will definitely help the reaction to happen. Got it? But if dry HCl is not there, aqueous solution is there, can I say these two will exist in equilibrium? Slowly this will start converting into hemiacetal and hemiacetal will convert into this. If you just recall, it was the entropy factor which was very influential there. I told you that ketones are less reactive because of entropy factor. This plus 2 moles of ROH in dry dry HCl, reaction is less. Okay, why? Because of entropy factor. Here we have 3 moles, I would get only 2 moles after that, so entropy is decreasing. But suppose if within the molecule OH is there, then entropy does not decrease much. One molecule, the product will also be one molecule, so there is no much change in the entropy. That's why even in the absence of dry HCl, the reaction will start taking place. Now what would happen? The lone pair present on this fifth carbon OH will attack as the alcohol on CHO. Okay, and cyclization will start happening. Now see the way to represent the cyclization. Okay, in all the standard books, this is the same representation used to show the cyclization. What is happening? C double bond O plus ROH is been treated. So what is the product we will expect? We will expect this as OR and OH to form, and we call this as hemiacetal. Right? So just be with me on this, everyone. So this is hemiacetal. Same thing is happening here also. This OH from here got connected with this carbon. So to show that in this Fischer projection, what I am doing, I am writing it this way. Okay, from here it has connected via oxygen to this. Okay, okay. So this bend does not mean there is a carbon here. Please understand that. Okay, I'll mark that and say it. Not carbon. Not carbon. Okay, it is just to showcase the Fischer projection in the Fischer projection itself. So from fifth OH, this oxygen got connected with to this carbon. Same is the case here also. These are all not carbons. This oxygen is directly connected to this carbon. When that happens, you can check out in hemiacetal also. Suppose if this was aldehyde, which means it has H here and R here, H here and R here. So you can see this OH and H, they can be either of the side. OH could be here, H could be here. So I'll get two kind of diastereomers here, right? You can see OH will be on the right hand side with H on the left hand side, okay? Or OH on the left hand side and H on the right hand side. Anything could come on the carbon 1 position. Okay, I guess you understood that, right? So what happened here? This carbon got changed to this form, these two forms. Okay, so this D-glucose, now check out this D-glucose here. So what happened? From this, it has attacked here. This has become O minus. This would become O minus, which will become OH eventually. So that OH and H, these two could be on right hand side or on the left hand side OH. Okay, so I will get two such compounds here. Correct? One is this one and this is the other one. Right? So two such compounds here. Now all of these are glucose forms only. This is a straight chain glucose and this is a cyclic glucose. These two are cyclic glucose. So I will get two cyclic glucose here. So let me write everything H, this. Okay. Sorry. And on this cyclic glucose, this is the carbon 1, which is now sp3 carbon. This is also carbon 1, which is sp3 carbon now. Earlier, before the bonding, it was sp2. After the bonding is done, it has become sp3 carbon. Okay, so that carbon has COR OH group, which means this is a hemiacetal carbon, and this is also an hemiacetal carbon, OR and OH group. So that is hemiacetal carbon. Okay, and the way to remember is, if this OH is on the right hand side in the position in the hemiacetal, and if the OH is on the left hand side, if if OH is on the right hand side, we call it as alpha D glucose. This is alpha D glucose. If it is on the left hand side, we call it as beta D glucose. This is the way to remember. Left side, OH is on the right hand side, it is alpha D. OH is on the left hand side, it is beta D. Okay. I hope all of you understood how the alpha and beta glucose is forming. Now check this. Alpha and beta glucose, if you observe with each other, every center, every chiral center is exactly same except on this carbon one. On this carbon one, it has become OH on the right hand side, here OH on the left hand side. So can I say alpha, beta, D glucose are epimers of each other? Yes, they are epimers of each other, correct? And such epimers, right, such epimers which are forming a cyclic epimers, right? So these are cyclic epimers. These cyclic epimers are called anomers. So this is an important word. What is an anomer? Anomer is nothing but a cyclic epimer formation. Just like we use the word enantiomer for non-superimposable mirror images, here we use anomers, which are the epimers, cyclic epimers of any sugar. Okay. I suppose all of, okay, I have written that here, check it out. So this is anomers, correct? Everyone again just go through the structure once again. So this is the D glucose formation, and it can convert into alpha D glucose and beta D glucose in aqueous solution. So in aqueous solution, it can give this form and this form. Now what does that mean? Eventually, after some time, like you add some glucose to water. See, you take Glucon-D, you know Glucon-D, right? You know, we usually take it when we dehydrate. So add some Glucon-D to water, mix it and keep it for some time. After some time, the solution does not have any straight chain glucose left at all. Only 0.02% D glucose will be present. Alpha D glucose will be around 36%, and this would be around 63.8%. These are all at room temperatures, okay? At room temperatures, you would certainly see alpha is around 36, beta is around 63.5%. Straight chain hardly exists anymore. So that means it will completely exist in cyclic form. And that is why if you take this solution, okay, this glass of solution, and then treat with NaHSO3 or treat with DNP test, they are giving negative test because this straight chain is not present. Now aldehyde is not at all present anymore. I guess this point is clear, right? Now you may have, I mean, one doubt that should come to your mind is, sir, we have always learned that hemiacetals are unstable in aqueous solution, correct? They are stable in basic medium, but they are not stable in aqueous solution or acidic solution. See, in aqueous solution, right, as long as acid is not there, this glucose will convert into straight chain, and from there it will convert into this, and this will convert into this one, and it will convert into that. Means there is a continuous movement of molecules from here to here, but when the equilibrium is achieved, then this is the percentage. I hope now you understood. Once the equilibrium is achieved, then the percentage of alpha D is 36 and this is 63.8%. Everybody understood that, right? And if we can separate this out, got it, using distillation, okay, if you can separate this out, alpha D completely, and this pure form without water, if I take pure form and check out how much angle it is making in the polarimeter, it is found to be 112.2 degrees. You don't have to remember, okay? So this, which means it is giving a dextro rotation. Similarly, beta, if at all I separate that, it is giving an angle of 18.7 degrees and plus, which means it is also dextro rotation. Okay, the pure form of alpha D is giving 112 degrees, and beta D in a pure form is giving around 18 degrees. Okay, Everybody got that? Right. So these carbons which are there, no? This carbon 1 here, these are called anomeric carbons. Anomeric carbons. So check this out. This is what has happened. Actually, glucose straight chain is like this. Okay, and when it has become a cyclic chain, it would look an hemiacetal group like this. This is the hemiacetal form. This is using Fischer projections. This is using general structures. General structure of straight chain glucose looks like this. In cyclic form, it would look like this. But this is not a great way of learning about the structure. Instead of Fischer projections or this regular structures, we come up with the new projections called Haworth projections. Now this is a better way of studying all the carbohydrates. Now let's see how to put the Haworth projections. First of all, you can see this is the structure of glucose. In glucose structure, if you recall, right, one thing is for this vertical line would have groups going inside, and on the horizontal line they will be coming outside, correct? So three dimensionally, if you figure out Fischer projection, this is what it is, right? Now imagine it is as if like a backbone. Okay, it is a backbone and I am bending over, like CHO is bending over to this side here, this side. Okay, now your view is from this side. Okay, your eye view is from this side. You are watching from this side. Okay, from this side you are viewing and this is bending. So can you see that with respect to your eye, OH will be up, this group will be down. This is H, 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 H. Okay. So when you view from this end, okay, this is the eyesight how it is, correct? This is how you are viewing it. So when you view it from that side, it appears as if OH is up, H is down. Okay. Which means you are making this vertical form into a cyclic form. Okay. And the cycle should be pointing towards you. So then OH and H will be up and down. Okay. So that is how the structure would be. Imagine this CHO which I am putting out. See, this is how it is. Your eye is here. Okay, from here you are watching that. Okay, from here you are watching that. Now you are watching towards this side. As you are watching towards this side, this CHO which is present here, correct? From that, this bone has been, this backbone has been bent this way. You can see that it is bent this way. So rest of all this OH and H, they will keep going up and down here. So that means they will, all the horizontal which were there, they have become vertical, and this vertical now has become a horizontal group. I hope that point is clear. So let me number that first. If you have carbon 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and here carbon 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is how it is. Okay. Please focus everyone. This is important now. How to draw the Haworth projections. Okay. Now, in Haworth projections, in cyclization, we have seen that this OH, check out, this OH was getting connected with this carbon. That's how a cycle is been forming. The fifth carbon's OH as an alcohol is attacking on CH to form hemiacetal. So to make sure this OH comes in the plane of CH, what I am doing, I am rotating this, anti-clockwise. If I rotate with respect to this carbon, if I rotate these three anti-clockwise, what do I get? I'll get CH2OH up, OH on this side and H down. Can you see that? CH2OH will come up. Lot of students will always come across this doubt, sir, how CH2OH is up? Now you can see when you put the entire skeleton, you will be able to observe it. CH2OH will come up as you rotate this by 90 degrees here, 120 degrees here, this H 120 degrees here, this OH 120 degrees here, correct? Now this OH can interact with CHO. Okay. After interaction, this carbon will also, because this is sp2 right now, it will also become sp3 and it will have two groups up and down, right? Now when you are writing it down here, correct, which means this side, right hand side, correct, check out here. If at all I virtually put this as a plane, this is the right side of the part and this is the left side of the part. Okay. So which means this alpha, if this first carbon has OH on this down position, okay, if you placing it as down position, which means this is that alpha one, right? So this is actually alpha, this is alpha D glucose, this is alpha D glucose. Okay. Now OH on this side, if you put on the first carbon, then this will be beta D glucose form. Okay, compare that with the earlier images here. Check out, OH on the right hand side on the first carbon is alpha D glucose. OH on the left hand side on the first carbon is beta D glucose. I am putting the same thing in Haworth projections like this. So you can see OH down is always alpha, up is always beta. Yes, this is clear. Now, if you check out, this structure has more similarities with that of this one, correct? Because this is a 6-membered ring, this is how it exists. So we take this as a reference and this name of this is pyran, correct? If you remember, name of this is, sorry, if you have 4-membered ring, this is tetrahydrofuran. If you just write a double bond, this will become furan. Same way, if I put double bond here, this will become pyran or tetrahydropyran. Right? Without double bond, it is hydro. With double bond, it is pyran. Same way, this is furan. Can you see this structure is in reference to the pyran? That's why the cyclic form of glucose is read as alpha D glucopyranose. Pyran, and it is a sugar, so that's why it is called glucopyranose. So the Haworth projection which I have written here, the cyclic form, that is called alpha D glucopyranose. Similarly, this would become beta D glucopyranose. What is alpha D glucopyranose and beta D glucopyranose? Okay. So pyran is a 6-membered ring. So you can see that it is a 6-membered ring and it is coming with the reference of pyran. If it is a 5-membered ring, then the name will come in reference to furan. Okay. So, right. So what are the simple rules of Haworth? Now you know how to draw the Haworth. So what are the simple rules first? Let us focus on that. So first we take the Fisher projection and make it into cyclic form. Got it? And on that cyclic form, you know that this is when we write it in normal structure, this is how we write. In this, imagine if this part of it is coming out of the board. If this part is coming out of the board, then this C and D, they will look, they will be visible in a vertical line. Same with this AB will be visible in a vertical line now. So that is what exactly happens here. So that's how we will get this Haworth projections. So this pyranose, this pyran, if you write it in this structure with this shaded portion, which means it is coming outside the board, this is how we represent the Haworth projection. So you can check out if it is beta D glucose. Okay, if this is beta D glucose, if at all I write it, I will convert into this form, Haworth projection. I'll show you one. Check out carefully. Don't write anything. Just keep your eyes open and watch carefully. This is carbon 1. This is that carbon 1. On the carbon 1, whatever is on the left hand side, it is going up. This becomes a rule in the Fisher Haworth projection. Everything that is on the left hand side of the Fisher projection will go upside. Okay, and everything on the right hand side of the Fisher projection will come in the down of Haworth projection. Okay, so vertically down, vertically up. Left means vertically up, right means vertically down. Okay, so that is carbon 1, carbon 1. Carbon 2, you can check it out. Carbon 3, carbon 4, carbon 5. The problem comes is with this one, right? Because between H and CH2OH, which one should we take up or down? Because it appears like H should be taken up. But this CH2OH is not on the right hand side, correct? It is down here. But that is the reason why I have put this skeleton structure and show and we have learned that CH2OH is actually up. You can see when we rotate, then only OH will come onto this side. Yeah, so that is one thing you got to remember, that on the sixth position, if you check it out, CH2OH will be up, which was down here. Okay. So right, so this is beta D glucose, and when you write it in the Haworth projection form, you call it as beta D glucopyranose. Okay. This is like a cyclohexane form. You know, instead of this carbon, we have oxygen. So which means if you actually check the geometry, it would be in a chair form. So this entire thing is a projection. But if you see the actual structure, it will be in a chair form. So this is how the chair form looks like. Okay. And another important rule in Haworth is we always write O. We can write this O onto this side also, right? But by convention, we always write that O on the back side. Front side will show always the structure starting from carbon. Okay. Right. Check out here. How does the chair form looks like? This compound, which is beta D glucopyranose. If at all I write it in the cyclic chair form, how does it look like? Okay. In the chair form, how do we write? This carbon 1 is this one. This is the carbon 1, and H is down, so I'll still put it as down, and OH will be on the equatorial position. Okay. Second carbon, OH is down, so which means H is up, so H must be on the axial position and OH must be on the equatorial position. On the third carbon, OH is up, right, and H is down, and you know that actually H is down here and OH would be here. Got it? Same way on the fourth carbon here, right? Fifth carbon, we know the structure would be like this. So check out on the fourth carbon what you can write. This would be OH here and H here, right? And in the last carbon here, H is going down here and CH2OH is here. So CH2OH. So this is the chair form of beta D glucopyranose. Okay. Now in beta D glucopyranose, got it? I want to emphasize one thing here. I think I have written alpha also. First, let me finish alpha as well. Then we'll come to that point. So this is about writing the beta chair form. Beta chair form. Now you can check out alpha chair form. Again, here this is carbon 1. So on the carbon 1, OH is down. So you can see OH is down here, H is here, right? And then we have OH here and H here. Then we have H and OH here, correct? H and OH here, and H and CH2OH here. So this is the alpha chair form. Okay. I told you one thing, that either you write the beta form which is beta positive glucopyranose or alpha D glucopyranose. In both of these cases, if you consider the stability, Haworth projection doesn't explain anything about stability, but chair form helps us to understand the stability. Now if you check out in the beta position, observe carefully everyone. In beta chair, this is equatorial, which means all the bulky groups which are supposed to be there, they are all on the equatorial position. Let me come to the alpha carbon. On the alpha one, if you check it out again, equatorial, but here it is axial. OH is axial here, correct? So if you check out all the, we know that we have learned in the conformations, chair conformations, any bulky groups or any lone pair carrying groups, if at all they are away from the structure, that will bring more stability, which means if you keep all of them on the equatorial position, that will bring more stability. That is why you will observe the beta anomer is more stable than the alpha anomer, and which also justifies the percentage of beta now. If you go back, we have learned that beta was around 63.8%, alpha was only how much? 34%, right? So that is, I think the chair forms will help us understanding them. Okay. The other way with lone pairs, if we have to show it, check it out. On this oxygen, we will have a lone pair also, that's sixth carbon, right? And you can see alpha D glucose and beta D glucose can be interconverted to each other this way. And if we check it out, the specific rotation what we found here was 112 degrees, and the specific rotation what we found here was 18.7. I'm just taking as 19, okay, average 19, and both were positive rotations. That means both of them were dextro rotations, correct? Now imagine if I add water to this, correct? Either I take pure form of alpha D or pure form of beta D and I add water to this. What would happen? They will start, moving from alpha D to beta D, beta D to alpha D, right? Now when this happens, correct? When this happens, we will get an equilibrium. At equilibrium, we have learned that alpha will be around 36% and beta will be around 64% on an average I'm writing. Okay, I have not considered straight chain. Straight chain was supposed to be 0.02%, so I ignored that. Okay, and I took only this as 64%. Then what will be the specific rotation at equilibrium now for the entire solution, because now this entire thing is one solution. For this solution, how much will be the rotation now? It would be 36 multiplied by 112 degrees plus 64% multiplied by 90 degrees divided by 100, and this is turning out to be 52.5 degrees, correct? So which means if you take aqueous solution of glucose at equilibrium, how much will it show? It will show around 52.5%, I mean 52.5 degrees. Okay, so what happened? If you take pure form, it will show reading. If you take this form, it will show reading. But on the polarimeter, suppose if this is polarimeter and this is angle 0, this is 0 degrees, correct? So in the solution, what would happen? Initially, polarimeter will keep moving like this, It will keep moving, left, right, left, right, left, right. It will keep moving like this. Okay, clockwise, anti-clockwise. And after equilibrium, once it reaches to an equilibrium, now it will set the reading at one point. At one point, the reading is set, and this angle will be around 52 degrees. I hope you guys understood that point, right? Now this property of the solution to show a constant value at equilibrium is called mutarotation. Very important term asked in JEE. So remember what is mutarotation. Okay. So mutarotation is nothing but to get a steady angle over time. Okay. So with respect to time, at equilibrium, if a solution gets a value, that is called mutarotation. Okay, so which means if we take alpha D pure form in aqueous solution, then the optical rotation gradually decreases to 52.6 degrees at equilibrium. Similarly, if you take beta D pure form in aqueous solution, as gradually if you put it over the time, it will increase to 52.6 at equilibrium. Is this clear? And this type of an optical rotation is called mutarotation. So remember the term carefully. What is mutarotation? Okay. Okay, same thing, another way of finding out fraction. Suppose sometimes the angle is given, you need to know the fraction. How to check out the fraction here? So you can say these angles are known and mutarotation angle is known. What is the percentage of alpha and beta? Okay, this type of a question is asked in Manos. With Manos, some angles were given, its mutarotation is given. We need to calculate how much percentage of alpha Manos and beta Manos is present. So what we can do, we know that mole fraction of alpha D I'm taking at A multiplied by 112 plus B multiplied by 19, that whole should be equal to 52, correct? So these are angles. So how much this is? A is coming out to be 0.36 and B is coming out to be 0.64. So if at all I ask in percentages, percentage amount of alpha is around 36% and percentage amount of beta glucose is around 64%. Okay. So I'm sure you should be able to work out questions like this. Okay. Right. See the muta rotation in Manos. See, Manos strictly is not there for JEE syllabus, but this type of a mentioning was there because it is quite similar to the derivation of glucose. Okay. Manos, I have just written the structures directly. You can check out. If OH is down, what is it beta? Alpha Manos. If OH is up, it is beta Manos. Remember that always. OH up, beta. OH down, alpha. Okay. Stability of Manos, if you check it out, it has been found that alpha Manos was found to be more stable compared to that of beta Manos. Unlike glucose. Okay, unlike glucose, we have found this. What has happened here? If you check out on the second carbon we have OH here, we have OH here, correct? Although beta, if you check out beta, we know that this OH is equatorial, 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 all of them are equatorial. So our expectation is that okay, beta should be more stable because here there is one OH at axial position. But what happened? The OH which has come on the second position here, correct? Unlike in glucose this OH was coming down, which is at equatorial. Here it is at axial. On this axial position, this OH was able to make a hydrogen bonding with the lone pair of this oxygen, and that increases its stability much more as compared to the of its beta Manos. Are you getting that? So this only happens in Manos. So check it out. So any change in the percentage of alpha and beta is called anomeric effect. Any change, like glucose is also undergoing anomeric effect, Manos is also going anomeric effect, and in Manos the anomeric effect shows that alpha Manos is more stable than beta. The reason behind this is hydrogen bonding between the axial OH and the lone pair of this oxygen. Everybody got that? Well, you might be asked this, like what is the stability of alpha Manos and beta Manos, which is more stable, that's all. Okay. I guess the glucose part is clear, everyone. Now let's see fructose. Fructose, what is happening? Suppose if this is D fructose, okay, observe carefully now, we will do the same thing. In D fructose, this lone pair can approach, this lone pair can approach here. If I take the aqueous solution of fructose, this lone pair can approach here and make an acetal formation. At the same time, this lone pair can also approach and make it. If this lone pair makes, you will get a 6-membered ring. If this lone pair makes, you will get a 5-membered ring. Okay. See what has observed. Usually, if you consider aldehydes and ketones, which is more reactive? Okay. More reactive is aldehydes, correct? And between, if ketones are relatively less reactive, so if there is a 6-membered ring forming, agreed, but in the chain it is quite far away, got it? Then when it comes to 5-membered ring, it is near to that. So if you observe the formation, the amount of 6-membered ring formation, 6-membered cyclic ring formation was less as compared to that of 5-membered ring. Okay, got it? Well, the only possible explanation is the reactivity of ketones. Reactivity of ketones is relatively less, so it can form 5-membered as well as 6-membered. But 5-membered, because this OH is relatively closer, so 5-membered amount is found to be more. Okay, and there is, other than this, there is no other explanation. So please do not put too much of brain into that. Remember, just 5-membered rings will give you more stable, you will get more 5-membered rings rather than 6-membered rings when it comes to keto forms. Okay, it is not just with fructose, any form of sugar. Got it? If it is ketones, you would usually intramolecular, I'm saying, in intramolecular, you would always see if it is ketones, 5-membered, acetals will be formed more in percentage as compared to 6-member. Okay, so I'm avoiding this 6-member. So I'm only now focusing on 5-member. So this OH, which is on the carbon 5, is attacking on carbon 2. You can see on carbon 2 here. So as it attacks here, correct. So this carbon will form an acetal, hemiacetal here. This is that carbon. Okay. So check out carefully. This carbon is same as this carbon. Okay, everyone. And again, these are not some vertices of carbon. This is just to show the bond formation. This all is one bond only. From carbon to oxygen, one bond. Oxygen to this carbon, it is one bond. But in Fischer projection, to show this representation is normally used. Okay. Same fundamental here also. If OH is on the left hand side, we call it as beta fructose. If OH is on the right hand side, we call it as alpha fructose, just like the same designation used for glucose. So D fructose in aqueous solution will also get into equilibrium, which means it is also showing mutarotation, and it gives alpha D fructose and beta D fructose. Everybody understood that? Now, if you check out beta D fructose and alpha D fructose, there are two structures which we can get. Okay, that is, I have shown it as the 6-membered ring first. That's not needed. We come check out. From here, this lone pair is getting attacked here, right? Will make us a beta D fructose and alpha D fructose. So now it is making a 5-membered ring. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So it is making a 5-membered ring. With this side OH is there, which means it is alpha D fructose. If it is on the left hand side, it is beta D fructose. Okay. In this, the 5-membered ring is coming in reference with the furan. In furan also you will have this O, right? Double bond here, right? So this is the furan structure. So I can write furan in 3 dimension this way, and this will help in Haworth projections. Got it? So you can imagine that this is carbon 2, 3, 4, 5, right? In the fructose which we are writing. So if this beta D fructose, I have to show it in the Haworth projections. Let's see how we can show it. Here on the carbon 1 position, carbon 3 position, 4 position and 5 position, we have various groups. On carbon 2, OH is up. You can see left is vertically up, right is vertically down. So on the carbon 2 position, we have CH2OH, which is vertically down. On third, we have OH up, H down. Fourth, we have OH down, H up. Fifth, we have H down, right? CH2OH up. Okay, so here we have CH2OH up. Same way, if at all I write the alpha, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4. On the second carbon, OH is down, CH2OH is up. Okay. Third carbon, H is down, OH is up. Fourth carbon, OH is down, H is up. Fifth carbon, H is down, CH2OH is up. Right guys, please understand this carefully now. This is the beta D fructose, this is the alpha D fructose. And it is coming in reference to furan, right? So that's why it is called alpha D fructofuranose. Fructofuranose. And in fact, if you check out its angle, right, both of them were giving levo-rotation. So that's why it is written as alpha minus D fructose. This minus represent levo-rotation. This capital D represent the family from which it is coming. Okay, that is D sugar. Same way here, if you check out, the name is beta minus okay, with D fructofuranose. So this is fructofuranose. So I hope all of you understood that. Same way, if you take pure form of D-fructose straight chain, okay, and take the aqueous solution of this, it will convert into beta, it will convert into alpha. So which means it is also undergoing mutarotation, okay. And finally, at mutarotation, it will show a levo-rotation, which means overall its angle is negative. I think all of you understood that. Okay. Here angles are not important, got it? Only you might in NCRT only glucose angle is mentioned 52.5. Okay. Yeah. So fructose, mannose, glucose, galactose, right? All of them in their cyclic form are acetal, hemiacetals, correct? And we know that hemiacetals, when they are in a cyclic form, they will give positive test to tollens. Today morning also somebody was asking which are the groups which will give positive test to tollens. Check out. Aldehyde, positive test. Okay. Alpha hydroxy, aldehyde or ketone, positive test. Okay. Hemiacetals, positive test. Okay. Hydroxylamine, positive test. Alright. Please remember these cases always. Wherever you find this, they will always give positive test with tollens, phalins and benedictines. Okay. So which means I can say all of these are what? Reducing sugars. These are all reducing sugars. So this is the reaction that will take place, correct? So with OH minus, we will get this O minus, double bond is formed, OR will come. So basically from here, you will get C double bond O. Once you get C double bond O, further reaction will take place. If all of you understood that. So glucose, fructose by structure, by Haworth projection you have to practice. What are the Haworth projections, how it is. Okay, why 5 membered, why not 6 membered, which I have written here, correct? 6 membered are relatively less in amount, that's all. Okay, so very few scientific papers or journals have been able to identify the 6 membered, but otherwise every papers has shown the presence of 5 membered fructose only. Okay, so remember that. Next, now this is important for JEE Advanced, so guys this could be asked, so be careful with this question. Check, this is called an OSA zone. OSA means sugar, zone is coming from that hydrazone. Observe this, 3 to 6 I am not at all disturbing. Carbon 3 to carbon 6 there is no disturbance here. The entire reaction is happening between carbon 1 and carbon 2 only. Okay. So what is the product formation? Let me show you. Here if you have an aldehyde, right, which is the structure is of glucose, if you observe. So if this glucose at carbon 1 and carbon 2 if you observe, the product that is formed when you react with 3 moles of phenylhydrazine, we are using 3 moles of phenylhydrazine with a pH of around 4 to 5. Okay. Then we know that aldehydes will react with this H2 and O will go and C double bond N is formed. What it has been observed that the final product which you will have is C double bond N, NH and pH, 1 mole here, the other mole which is CH double bond N, NH and pH, and the third mole is gone as pH NH2. The third mole will leave as pH NH2. So this is the overall reaction which is happening. Okay. Overall reaction could be asked as an objective type question, so check it out. Overall reaction is if I take 1 mole of glucose, react with 3 moles of phenylhydrazine in slightly acidic medium, I will get this structure plus pH NH. Now, where is ozone reaction very useful? Okay, see this ozone is actually a precipitate which is colored. A colored precipitate is formed. So this ozone formation really helps us understand, correct, the difference between different monosaccharides. How is it? First of all, ozone reaction cannot differentiate D-fructose, D-mannose and D-glucose. All of them will give the same osazone. This compound name is osazone, sugar and one. Okay, so this is sugar and zone. So this is osazone for D-fructose, D-mannose, D-glucose. All of them will be same. This is the first thing you got to remember. Okay. Second, C2 atom loses its chirality in osazole, formation of glucose and mannose. Okay. So this osazone of glucose and mannose, this carbon's chirality is lost and it will become a C double bond N. Second important point. Third, 3 moles of phenylhydrazine are used during the process of osazone formation, okay, with 1 mole of monosaccharide. Now let me show you the mechanism here. If you check out C double bond O here, this double bond O and H2 will be relieved. This is something which we have learned in aldehydes and ketones already. So wherever we have C double bond O plus H2, N and Z in acidic medium, it will remove this and makes C double bond N and Z formation. This is the formation which we have seen. The same thing will happen here also with phenylhydrazine. First we will get this compound C double bond N and NHPH. Okay, everyone. Now slowly, if you check it out, being in acidic medium, what we can expect? This is like an imine form, right? Correct. So this bond will break to make a double bond here. This is a tautomerism, right? So basically H2O is taking away this H plus and this double bond will shift onto this, right? And this this pi bond will move as N minus, and this N minus in acidic medium will take away that H plus. Okay, so I'm directly writing that product as NH here, NH, PH, C double bond COH. I hope all of you understood. Siltol, basically like an enol form. So we got an enol form. Okay. So once you get an enol form here, this is still on the first and second carbon only we are discussing. So on the second carbon, if you check it out, this lone pair will support as double bond because enols will try to become keto back. So and this double bond will try to shift here. This time H won't be leaving, but this will become a leaving group and it would leave. Okay. And since it is in acidic medium, imagine that it is taking away the proton from that and it would become PNH2, PHNH2, that is aniline. So 1 mole of aniline will be coming out and you will get a complete imine form, C double bond NH. This is the imine form. I hope all of you got this. Now we have an imine, right, and we have C double bond O. Got it? If you remember, imines are unstable in aqueous solutions, so they will immediately split as these 2 hydrogens here and oxygen onto this side. Okay, so they will convert into C double bond OH, which is connected to C double bond O and tail here. Now both sides, there is C double bond O, they will react with 1 mole each, and this OH, this O and H2 here, correct, and this H2 and NHPH, this one. So this one come out as H2 and this will come out as H2 and 2 moles will get clubbed here. Got it? I hope you guys understood that. Yeah. Okay. So let me repeat once again. First you will have this is the first mole. First mole is making a reaction with the aldehyde C double bond O here. Correct? So first we will get C double bond N here, and then it will slowly shift into double bond formation here. Got it? And once you get this, lone pair from nitrogen will extract this proton. It will become N-amine here. This is like an amine group, correct? And N-amine formation Then lone pair will make a double bond, releasing that PHNH2 aniline. Imines unstable, forms ketones or aldehyde groups, which is carbonyl groups. React with 2 moles, you will get this product, and the final product is ozone. The question that could be asked is like, sir, why ozone is not forming below the first two? Because below that also we can have this formation, right? So one thing you got to observe here, see, when this lone pair is connected here, right, you can assume that this double bond is shifting here and pH minus is coming, right? Internally, this nitrogen can take away that H plus. Okay, so I'm just breaking that and showing this will happen at one step. Understood? So it is happening like this bond is breaking here and this is taking away this H plus, this double bond is shifting here. Got it? This double bond is here and it is making a double bond on this side. So that's how pH NH2 is forming and we'll get this imine form. Imines will break into aldehydes or ketones, respective carbonyl compounds, and you get these 2 moles connected. See, after the connection has done, check out the lone pair present on the second carbon here, that will make a strong hydrogen bonding here with this hydrogen. Okay. Is all of you understood that? So we have this NH, this NN, and C double bond N, C single bond C double bond N, and this. Got it? So this will make a strong interaction, a strong hydrogen bonding is formed here, and because of this, it would appear like a ring structure above and a tail coming down. So you can see like this ring structure and tail coming down. Okay. So this stable configuration, this stable form in the above first two carbons will avoid further any breaking of second carbon by making this. What we are expecting is this, right? This lone pair should attack here, this bond should, that should move as a double bond here, and here this bond should move as this should go as a double bond here. That will not happen here because the first two carbons will make a very stable structure above. So most of the ozones are formed at first and second carbon only. I hope all of you understood that. Okay. Now, second problem is this one, ozone. If you check it out, this I'll show you once again. This is an first reaction. If you remember, how does this happen? Hydrazines, right? If you use acidic medium, normally we always make this reaction in acidic medium, correct? Why? Because we try to increase the electrophilicity here and then this H2 can attack, correct? So in the case of this acidic medium, reaction would be relatively slow. Why relatively slow? Because you have to extract this proton from here, correct? And basic medium is not going to make lot of difference. So slightly basic medium will also help the reaction to happen better. Got it? So which means if you even have, let me write it here. Bottom line is all you need to know is this. All you need to know is this one, that carbon 3 to carbon 6, no disturbance. The structure, the way it is there, it will retain. The ozone will only formed at carbon 1 and carbon 2. This will form like a cyclic structure here. Here also it is like a cyclic structure. Which ozones would be same? Let me repeat once again. Glucose, mannose and fructose. Because carbon 3 to carbon 6, they have same structure. So whether you start with ketone or whether you start with aldehyde, it doesn't matter. Ozone will form only on those carbon 1 and carbon 2. Okay. Next. So far whatever we have discussed is about monosaccharides. Now let us see disaccharides. Main disaccharides which is there in our course are these three, which is sucrose, maltose and lactose. Okay. Sucrose in general is a white crystalline, very sweet, correct? And heated above boiling point, right? So then it will become shiny brown, what we call it as caramel. If you know that, right? Know what is caramel? Now, same thing, if I take aqueous solution of dextrorotation, right, aqueous solution of sucrose, if at all I take, then its angle is around 66.5. Okay, why that would happen? Check out here. The minute if you add Cis12H22O11 sucrose to water, it will split into glucose and fructose. And since it is aqueous solution, both will show mutarotation. Pure form is dextrorotation. Alpha is 66.5. Yeah. The pure form of sucrose is 66.5. The minute you add it to water, it will split into glucose and fructose. Glucose is showing around 52.7 mutarotation. Fructose is showing around minus 92.4 degrees mutarotation. And it is a mixture of these two, right? So if you check out overall the mixture, what has happened, this angle will dominate over this and overall it will be levorotation. Okay, so initially think like this, it was actually dextrorotation. Sucrose in a pure form was dextrorotation, then on adding it to water it has become levorotatory, correct? So such type of sugars which will change their configuration are called invert sugars. These are called invert sugars. Okay, so which means they invert their configuration in aqueous solutions. So hydrolysis of sucrose bring the change in sign of the rotation. This is called the inversion of cane sugar. Correct. And invert sugar questions would be given in kinetics if you recall. Okay. In kinetics you may have used this type of problems where rotation is given, right? Theta rotation is given at different times, correct? And we have to calculate time taken or what will be the rate constant, and you may have used this formula, right? This R infinity means rotation at, after a long time when the muta rotation has seen. R naught as in initial rotation, right? RT, what time you want to calculate. So this way it can be related to kinetics, so check it out. Next, sucrose structure. How does sucrose structure looks like? First of all, sucrose is, I can say, as a combination of glucose and fructose, right? So in glucose, this is the alpha D glucose and this is the alpha D beta D fructose. You can see OH is on the up. OH up means it is beta fructose, and OH down here it means it is alpha glucose. Okay. It has been seen that sucrose is formed by alpha D glucopyranose, this one, with carbon 1, this is carbon 1, connected with fructofuranose of carbon 1 with this carbon. This carbon, the connection has been established between these two. Okay, how does that react? Means what is the reaction that is happening here? You can see that this OH here, right, and this H here, correct? So that would dehydrate, right, and make a connection between both of them, right? You know that glucose and sucrose, the only difference here is the water, right? If you add water, it has become glucose and fructose. So if you remove water from glucose and fructose, you should get sucrose. The same thing I am doing here as well. Okay. So to get the structure of sucrose, first we are learning the structure of alpha and beta, alpha glucose and beta fructose, and trying to connect both of them. Okay. Now imagine this uh, with respect to this. Suppose, okay, if at all it is passing through the plane here, correct? It is like a plate. Okay, on the plate, if you have, suppose, imagine this bowl like this. I think this is easy to explain. If at all I have bowl with respect to this plane, if at all I rotate the bowl, then it will get invert, right? Okay, so I rotate the ball here, correct? I have rotated the ball this way. So if at all I rotate that, it would get invert. Same thing here, this is like a plate here. With respect to this plane, if at all I rotate it, correct? So if at all I rotate this way, what do I get? All the ones which are on the bottom, on the top, they will come vertically down, and everything which was vertically down will come onto the top, and this carbon 1 will come onto this side, and this carbon 4 will come onto this side. I hope all of you are able to make that. Yeah, see, this is so I mean here carbon 2 here. So this is carbon 2, C2. So this is carbon 2, carbon 3, carbon 4, carbon 5. Okay. Now between carbon 1 of glucose and carbon 2 of fructose, I need to make a connection here. Correct? Carbon 1 connection. Mistake. Yeah. I have to make a connection between this carbon 1 and this carbon 1. So if I have to make this connection, I need to have them side by side. No? So that is why what I am doing, this carbon 1, I am trying to bring this to left hand side. So how can I bring that? By rotating like this. When you rotate, now check how it looks like. This entire thing will appear this way with carbon 2 coming to this side and carbon 5 coming to this side. So this will be carbon 5. Okay, everyone got that? And on carbon 2, CH2OH was down, vertically down. Now CH2OH will be vertically up. Okay, so this is alpha D glucose. Put everyone. So we have this as alpha D glucopyranose, and this is beta D fructofuranose. Right? So instead of showing in this form, I have shown in this form, so that we have closeness of this and we can remove both of them to make a connection. Okay. Now see how the connection has been done between these two. So we have OH here, check it out, we have OH here now, and we have OH here, right? This is on carbon 2. So on the carbon 2 here, we can see this OH and H, any of that, whether it is from glucose or fructose, we don't have to worry about that. Those two got a connection now. So what connection we got here? This oxygens made a connection this way, removing out water. So minus H2O. Minus H2O has been lost. So this connection now will make this carbon, see this carbon has become OR, this side also it has become O and something, this is entire thing is R, right? So with respect to this carbon, this is also OR, this is also OR, which means it is nothing but an acetal now, OR on one side, OR on the other side, correct? So OR 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 dash anything. So basically this carbon also become acetal, right? And this side also, if you check it out, earlier it was hemiacetal. Okay, now this one also become acetal because this has OR and this has become OR here. Both sides it has become OR. So with respect to glucose also it is acetal. With respect to fructose also it is acetal. Everybody got that? So what connection we have made between carbon 1 of glucose and carbon 2 of fructose? We have made a connection. Okay, and when after the connection, if both these carbons, if the carbons have become acetal forms, we call this as a glycosidic linkage. This is glycosidic linkage, right? And this glycosidic linkage is between alpha and beta, so that is why it is called alpha beta glycosidic linkage. Alpha of glucose, beta of fructose, both got into a connection this way. And if you were asked what is the structure of sucrose, this is the structure of sucrose. I guess all of you understood that. Let me repeat once again so that you are clear on that. Check out. If we take alpha D glucopyranose treated with beta D fructopyranose furanose of C2 carbon, okay, then connection between these two got it, will make a sucrose form. But C1 here, C2 here are far away. I mean, connection can't be shown. So to show the connection and show the Haworth projection of sucrose, I inverted this. I rather rotated this by 180 degrees. So everything which was vertical has become, everything which was vertically up has become vertically down here, and everything which was vertically down has become vertically up here, and which also helped that this C2 has come to this position. So to this position it has come. Once it has come to that, this OH and this OH, from here this OH and H, any of that OH and H will get connected, right, and we can have this linkage now. So all you need to do is remove water from glucose and fructose, right? So when you get that, you'll get a linkage here. Check. So between C1 of alpha D glucose and C2 of beta D fructose, a connection is been established, and that connection is called glycosidic linkage. We use the glycosidic name when at least one of the carbon is becoming converting from hemiacetal to acetal. So this was actually OH, which was hemiacetal. You can see this carbon with OR and OH. This was hemiacetal. Now this has become OR and OR. So it has become acetal. Then we call it as glycosidic linkage. Okay. So check this. Acetals of carbohydrates are called as glycosides because they will got a glycosidic linkage. Sucrose is non-reducing sugar. Why sucrose is non-reducing sugar? Now I hope you will be able to understand, because this side, from fructose side also it is acetal, from glucose side also it is acetal, and acetals are stable. Remember that acetals are stable in basic medium. So since acetals are stable in basic medium, you won't see any reaction happening with sucrose, correct? Because Tollens test, Fehler's test, Benedict's test, all of them are in basic medium only. Okay. Next, all non-reducing sugars do not show mutarotation. So which means once you have this sugar form, correct? Now if you try to convert that into pure form of it, we will not have any pure form which will give a mutarotation. Okay, it will directly convert into glucose and fructose, that is different. But within sucrose, can we have any alpha sucrose or beta sucrose? We can't have that. Okay, so therefore we will see that non-reducing sugars cannot show mutarotation. I guess these points are clear, everyone. Let's check out the structure of maltose now. These are all disaccharides. Maltose can be obtained by partial hydrolysis of starch. So if you fully hydrolyze starch, we will get glucose. But if you partially hydrolyze in the presence of an enzyme like diastase, okay, diastase, we will get n moles of C2L, H22 and O11. This will be maltose. This is maltose. Okay. See the structure of maltose. All you need to know is the connection. That's all. C1 of alpha D and C4 of alpha D glucopyranose. Both glucose only. No fructose. Okay. So glucopyranose. See, I have written the structure of alpha D here. I have written the structure of alpha D here. OH was here. OH is here. Both of them are alpha, alpha and alpha. Okay. Correct. Now I need OH of fourth carbon. On fourth carbon, luckily OH is on the down only. Correct. If you see the structure of glucose, see fourth carbon OH is down only. This is also glucose only. So you can have easy connections here. So I can show it connection here itself. So this OH and this OH gets connected. So we will get a glycosidic linkage like this. Okay. Got this. So we have alpha. Because it is an alpha and alpha, we don't have to write alpha two times. We simply write it as alpha glycosidic linkage was established here. Is it a reducing sugar or a non-reducing sugar? That is the next question. if you check out this side, it is acetal formation because this carbon has become OR. Check out carefully, this with respect to this carbon O, and this entire thing is R. This side also O, and this is all R. So with respect to this carbon it is acetal. But what about this carbon? This carbon is still open, no? This carbon is OH and OR, which means this carbon is still hemiacetal only. So can it be reducing sugar or a non-reducing sugar? So it is a reducing sugar. So advanced this type of questions have come. You will be given 4-5 structures, and you are supposed to find out which of the following are reducing or non-reducing sugars. So what you will do, you will just check out the hemiacetal bonds. If at all even one hemiacetal bond is present, which means it is reducing sugar. If all of them are acetal forms, then that is non-reducing sugar. I guess all of you got that. Yeah. So maltose is a link between C1 and C4 of alpha glucose. Next, lactose. What we see it in milk. Okay, the milk sugar is lactose. Lactose on hydrolysis, right, with dilute H plus or enzyme lactase. Here we use lactase. Correct. So that yields an equimolar of D-glucose and D-galactose, which means it was combined with glucose and galactose. So let's see its structure, how it looks like. So structurally, it is the beta carbon 1 of D-galactose with C4 of beta D glucose. If you combine these two, right, then we will get this as the lactose form. So first let me show you what is D-glucose and D-galactose. This is D-glucose. Check out the structure, and this is D-galactose. This is the D-galactose. D-glucose and D-galactose, structurally everything is same except on this carbon, right? So which means these are epimers of each other. Which carbon it is? It is 4th carbon. So C4 epimers. So D-glucose and D-galactose are C4 epimers. And this is the structure of D-glucose, on which if at all I put OH on top, I mean vertically up, that is beta D glucopyranose. Same way here also, if I put OH on top for galactose, that would become beta. So both of them are beta here. Okay, and C1 is here, C4 is here, correct? So I have to connect these two. So I have to make a linkage between these two now, correct? So how can I make it? Check it out. So here we write a connection this way. So removing water from here, H2O, if you remove from both of them, this is the connection you will have like this. Got it? It does not mean there is a carbon here, it is just one bond only. Between this and this there is oxygen. But this is to show through Haworth projections. Got it? So here this is beta D galactopyranose, and this was beta D glucopyranose. And what about the connection here? This connection is beta glycosidic linkage. Beta glycosidic linkage. Again, I don't write beta comma beta because both of them are beta only. If both of them are different, like one is alpha, one is beta, then we will show as alpha beta. Okay. Here also observe this, everyone. This carbon is OR, and this side also it is OR, which means this is an acetal carbon, while this carbon is OR and OH. So what is this one? This is still an hemiacetal carbon. This is hemiacetal, and we learned that hemiacetals are reducing sugars. So in short, can I say that both maltose and lactose are reducing sugars? I guess this point is clear, everyone. Yeah. Okay. So please learn this carefully. Okay. So what are disaccharides? What are monosaccharides? How the structures are? As much as syllabus is concerned, we have in disaccharides we have only these three. One is maltose, lactose, and sucrose.